on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop.
Welcome back, as it's Monday, and we're going to start talking about the things that happened over the weekend and last night for all of you that are interested. That is the swinging medallions from the 1960s with Double Shot, My Baby's Love. So, good upbeat song to start the Monday off with, Jack. There's news that happened. Of course, finally we got the Super Bowl coming up this week, so we'll be able to start talking a little bit about the game, come Wednesday and Friday or whatever. But there was some action in the NBA. You were not when we covered it. Luka gets traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. It looks like Dallas wanted to upgrade their defense. I think the Lakers got a little bit better without Davis. Get your reaction to it, since you didn't do it last show.
Yeah, well, I thought Keith Angle would be, we had a miscommunication, would be doing the college football segment, Sunday morning or whatever. I didn't realize with that, so my apologies. There's a lot of fallout from the deal, and there's a lot of criticism of the Dallas Mavs, which there should be, absolutely. Because if you're going to have a generational talent like Luka, and you're going to trade him, you want to get the biggest haul you can. But it's as if they wanted to do it and not have any feedback while it was being done. They traded him like in the middle of the night. It's like they snuck out. You know what they were like, Mac? Someone who's lived on the block for years and years and have been very close with all their neighbors. And in the middle of the night, they move while everyone is asleep and they don't say goodbye. And then before you know it, you turn around and they're gone. That's what it was. Dallas could have gotten a bigger haul for Luka if they put him out there for all the bidders. They absolutely could have. Now, with that said, if Anthony Davis wasn't 6 years older than Luka, he was the same exact age, you can make a compelling argument that it was a pretty even deal. If you look at the age factor, because Anthony Davis is outstanding, and people keep thinking, well, the Lakers wanted to get Luka. It increases their chances of winning an NBA championship. Guess what? They won an NBA championship with Anthony Davis, and LeBron. They've done it already. Luka hasn't done it at Dallas. But Luka is 25 years old. There's concerns about Luka's conditioning, they say. But what about Anthony Davis? The concerns about his injury history as well. And again, there's a 6-year age difference. There were other little moving pieces in the deal as well. but Dallas winds up getting a 2029 first-round draft choice, which isn't going to be that high of a draft choice because the Lakers are going to have Luka, so they're not going to be that bad. What's going to be that high of a pick? But Dallas could have gotten more in return. They put him out there. Just think of how they could have wheeled and dealed. And so many teams have these young stars who maybe they would have moved on from if they could have gotten Luka, like the Minnesota Timberwolves, like an Anthony Edwards may have been made available for Luka, for example. But maybe not. But I know Luka would have commanded, believe me, nearly anyone. You know, I mean, you don't think the Boston Celtics, for example, I wouldn't have even seriously considered if they could have gotten Luka for Jason Tatum, wouldn't have seriously considered it. I'm not saying they would have made the deal, but they wouldn't have dismissed it automatically. They would have sat down and they would have been shaking the front office. You know, we were just offered, we have the decision of a lifetime to make. And either they would make it or not. It would have been basically hit and miss. But I think why this is a great deal for LA, because the Lakers, they always have had stars. Luka has a tremendous value to the franchise that goes beyond winning. Think back, Mac, decades. They had Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain. Then they transitioned to Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then they have Kobe, they have Shaq, then they have LeBron. You know, through the eras, they've always had these superstar players who've been the face of the franchise, the Lakers. And now in Luka, who's only 25 years old, for the next decade at least, they have their face of their franchise. LeBron is still a heck of a player, and he might be able to play at this level for the next few years, but Luka is going to be their face of their franchise, you know, moving forward. Maybe not at this point. LeBron's still the guy who's going to command the most power. LeBron's still going to be the most recognizable, you know, name as far as the Lakers are concerned, Matt. Because if the Lakers are playing in another city, what's the first thing that's going to pop into your mind? It's going to be LeBron and Luka, not Luka and LeBron. Kind of like you and I, the Mac and Jack show. You're the man first, and then I'm next.
You know, there was other things to consider, right? You know, Luka was coming about on that max deal. They would have had to sign him for a lot of money if they were going to keep Luka. So this kind of saved them from signing him for that high contract. They had, as you said, they had some problem with Luka with his conditioning, they said. Does this put a chip on Luka's shoulder? Does this make him play harder?
I think he has to in this certain sense. And at Dallas, he was the man. Notice when Kyrie Irving went over to Dallas, Kyrie Irving didn't command all that power the way he did. Like when Kyrie Irving was at Cleveland, LeBron was the man. Kyrie Irving couldn't take over. When Kyrie Irving went to the Celtics, he was kind of the man, but not in a positive way. He went to the Brooklyn Nets. It was a fiasco with Kyrie Irving. He was an absolute fiasco. Then Kyrie Irving goes to the Mavs. You know, Luka's the Batman. He was the Robin, essentially, you know, when he was with the Mavs. Luka commanded the most power because if there was ever a dispute with Kyrie and Luka, the Mavs were not going to go against Luka because he was the guy. And, you know, now it kind of, you know, the elements change just, you know, a little bit with Anthony Davis coming to Dallas. Maybe Kyrie comes out a little more, tries to be a little more of a leader. And he hasn't been a positive leader, Kyrie, even though he's been a good influence at Dallas since he got there. Maybe Kyrie takes over a little more, like it's his team a little more. Because Anthony Davis, keep in mind, will always defer to LeBron, you know, with the Lakers.
Well, Count Blah's comment here, Count Blah, LeBron's on the back burner now.
What back burner
Would you,
is he on?
Wait a minute, let me finish. Would you say right now that Luka Doncic is a better player than LeBron James?
Well, look at the top of his game. Yeah, I mean, you could say he's a little better now, but that's not the point. I mean, really, LeBron is more consistent. LeBron is still one of the top 10 players in the NBA.
And Luka might be top 2, Jack.
Luka might be top 2. Luka might not be top 5. If you want to get down to it with the amount he plays, I mean, you can get into a debate who's better than Luka, who isn't better than Luka. But I will say this. Let's make believe, Mac, and this will be a good argument on Luka's behalf. The NBA was having a draft. All the NBA players were being drafted by the teams. Who would probably go first because of his age? Wembanyama would probably go first because of his youth. Luka's only 25. Because of his age, Luka would be a top, maybe go number 2 overall because he's only 25.
Right.
Okay, and LeBron, because of his age, probably wouldn't go top 10 because of his age. They're 40 years old.
Right.
I guess they would look for younger options. So
well, I'm not denying LeBron's how good he is. Great player. I mean, he drives to the basket like no one else. He can make those threes. Still a good defender, probably a better defender than Luka. But Luka.
Luka's not a good defender. Period.
Right.
Let's consider that.
Right. So, I think Luka adds maybe a little bit more offense as a whole to the team. Maybe he's better with that 5, Jack, than Davis was. The Davis is just down low. I'm a down low guy. Get it to me. I'll get rebounds for you. I'll get some dunks for you. Luka's a little bit more than that.
Oh, yeah, no. Luka's a lot more versatile on the offensive end. But Anthony Davis gives you much more of a defensive presence. Luka is not a good defensive player. It doesn't mean he can't. During the playoffs last year, he worked on it a little more, and he took his game up defensively a level. So kudos to him in that regard. But, of course, there's this talk about Luka's conditioning the whole time. And apparently Dallas just got tired. He was off the court. He was injured. And they felt he maybe wasn't as dedicated as he could have been, that he was getting by on talent. Right. I mean, and we hear this about certain players. That's been the big knock on Zion Williamson. I mean, if a team wanted to take a big gamble and trade for Zion Williamson, and Zion Williamson stayed healthy, they would get one of the bigger impact players in the NBA if he was healthy. Okay? And Luka, when he's on the court, he's great when he's on the court, at least on the offensive end. But the point is, it's the culture of a team a lot of times. LeBron sets a great example. No player is going to come to the Lakers and slack off with LeBron there. And I don't mean Luka slacks off on the court. He hustles, he plays hard. And I'm sure he feels he's in shape. But that extra push, that extra motivation, I think him going to the Lakers, it's going to push him to maybe work harder than he's ever worked before. And keep in mind, the Mavs just came 2 games away from winning the NBA championship last year.
Yeah, definitely. Blah also says, but there will be conflict. They both need the ball to work. Probably
conflict
so.
With who? And there's no conflict with LeBron. LeBron will gladly defer to Luka if Luka could score. LeBron will gladly allow his numbers to dip. He won't be numbers oriented, as long as the Lakers are winning, if it means bringing out the best in Luka.
See, that was the thing with Davis too. LeBron kept trying to give the team to Davis, and it seemed like Davis didn't want to take it. I mean, Davis in his, 4 or 5 years ago, he was the guy. LeBron was going to let him have the team, sort of like he did with Dwayne Wade. In the first year he was there, he let Dwayne Wade have it. Well, let's go opposite. Dwayne Wade finally gave it to LeBron, It seemed that LeBron was doing that for Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis didn't want it or couldn't do it.
They won the NBA championship.
Yeah,
The Lakers.
know.
I don't want to hear it.
Asterisk.
It was a major, no asterisk. They played the playoffs. The playoff games were the same number of games as every other year. It was just a regular season. It was cut a little short. And the Lakers would have been in the playoffs full season, part season, regardless. So that had nothing to do with it. No, that's... No, I don't want to hear like the asterisk part. But then you want to know something, Mac? In 1981, when the Dodgers won the World Series, beat the Yankees in the World Series, it was a strike-shortened season, even though the playoffs won. So let's put an asterisk next to the Dodgers. They didn't win. I'm being sarcastic now.
Well, I think you're making sense. I mean, how can you say for sure if the season played out as long as it did, that the Dodgers even make it?
Well, let's go to NBA. You mean to tell me the Lakers would not have made the playoffs if there was a full season played? Everyone makes the playoffs, man.
What did they play? 81 games, if I'm not mistaken. That's the regular season, right? 81, 82 games?
Yeah, 82 games.
So what did they play? Half of that year? They played half? I don't know.
But do you think there's any doubt that the Lakers would have made the playoffs? Everyone makes the playoffs. That's halfway decent.
I'm just saying,
it's ludicrous to think the Lakers would not have made the playoffs that year.
We're not talking playoffs. We're talking championship. I don't know if they would have made
the playoffs determine who's the champion.
I know, but
and the Lakers went through the playoffs, and in the finals they beat the Miami Heat. Okay, so they were a major success, LeBron and Anthony Davis, because they won an NBA championship together.
Nobody even talks about that championship, except you. Nobody even talks about it.
Well, they should. I mean, you want to know what's nonsense? For example, the Commissioner's Cup tournament or whatever you call it. The Lakers won that, by the way.
Well,
that, to me, you could say is nonsense. The in-season tournament. Okay. I'm willing to dismiss something like that. But thank you, Count. But the Lakers did win the NBA championship with LeBron and Anthony Davis. So I don't want to hear that LeBron and Anthony Davis didn't work. It didn't work out. It worked out. The Lakers are looking at things going forward. Having Luka gives them a major star, and it increases the value of the Laker franchise. It goes beyond winning and losing. I tell you this all the time, Mac. Certain players you want to sign because it's more than what they do on the field, like Aaron Judge. When we were arguing should the Yankees sign him, you were looking at it strictly what he was going to give you on the field. I was looking at an additional dimension, what he means for the value of the franchise. Mac, if you were the Yankees and you could have traded Babe Ruth away early in his career, if it meant one additional championship, you would have gotten rid of the Babe. I look at it. He was a legendary player who increased the value of the franchise historically, but you look at it as one additional championship. Get rid of him if it means one more title.
Now you're just talking silly. And Count Blah, like I thought, was agreeing with me, Jack, not you. It is the only championship in history that people scoff at. I agree.
But they shouldn't, though. They shouldn't.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. Lakers GM Rob Pelinka believes Luka will lead the franchise in the future. And LA might sign more stars. As you said, LA loves signing stars, Jack. Luka's one of the biggest and one of the best. So I think they made it out better than Dallas did.
Well, Dallas could have gotten more. Let's say hypothetically, Dallas let it be known around the league that they were looking to move Luka. You want to know why they didn't do it, Mac? Because their fan base would have been outraged, up in arms. Because Luka did not ask for a trade. Luka didn't demand a trade. Chances are Luka didn't want a trade.
It's true.
So they did it in such a secret way, so quick, before anyone could say anything. And obviously, the Dallas GM and Rob Pelinka are buddies, so it was an easy fit. They liked Anthony Davis, which is great, but they didn't get as much as they could have, considering Davis
I would
is
agree.
6 years older. So basically, Luka has 6 extra years. If Anthony Davis was 25 years old, the same as Luka, now I'm kind of okay. That levels the deal out to a large extent.
From the Tracer Round podcast, we in Dallas are shocked by the Luka Doncic trade. Jason Kidd didn't know. No, Jason Kidd didn't know.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the people in
LeBron
Dallas.
LeBron James didn't know. And normally LeBron James knows everything that happens there. They all didn't know. Everybody was shocked. So, yeah.
Well, it happened so quick. Sometimes you have to move. You can't have. But I'm going to say something about the Mavs now. Long term, this is a bad deal for them. Short term, it's actually a good deal. It gives Dallas a better chance of winning an NBA championship.
I know about
short term with Anthony Davis. But and I'm going to look at it this way. Let's say Dallas wins the NBA championship this year with the trade. That means no matter what goes down with Luka in the future, the trade's a success. You're never going to be able to put the trade down if they win the NBA championship. But of course, if Dallas never wins an NBA championship with Anthony Davis, chances are Luka's going to be a great Laker for the next decade or so. Then the deal's really going to come down and hurt Dallas a lot. But if Anthony Davis stays healthy, he's going to perform for years to come. This isn't like a baseball player who suddenly is not hitting, a pitcher that's not pitching. Anthony Davis is going to be an outstanding player for years, for the next 5 years or so.
Maybe so. If he doesn't get hurt.
If he doesn't get hurt. Right, exactly.
Good morning to Richard. Good morning.
Over the years, it's going to be a colossal disaster for Dallas.
Good morning to Richard. Good morning to David for joining the Count Blog. Glad to have you on. I think it's the first time that you've joined us. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. Tracer Rounds podcast. If you want to go ahead and put what time your podcast is on, and we'll throw it up for you. No problem. Let's see. I'm happy for Ad basketball team, and he wants to win. Not Bronny stuff. Okay, good. Yeah,
come on.
We're not talking about Bronny. I agree. No talking about Bronny.
No. I mean, this is silliness. Dallas wants to win. The Lakers don't want to win. Come on.
Well, you were right. Okay, here you go. Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So there you go. They'll be on Tuesday at 8 p.m. on Instagram. Yeah. Is it Instagram or is it Twitch? I'm sorry, on Twitch.
Yeah. So, yeah. Why don't we just keep talking about this other show?
Yes,
Mac?
we will.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. Luka, of course, he releases emotional farewell to Dallas. Wanted to leave Dallas with a championship. So
when Luka comes back to Dallas, he'll be a fan favorite there. But let's see what transpires at Dallas, because I'm going to tell you, the AD Kyrie Irving combo is going to be awesome for the Mavs. And the Mavs, I'm going to tell you, are going to be a better team initially. I mean, with the defense that Anthony Davis is going to supply, Anthony Davis, when healthy, is one of the best players in the NBA, one of the top 10 players in the NBA. Kyrie Irving, let him play his game, and he's outstanding. I could argue Kyrie Irving's maybe one of the top 10 players in the NBA.
Maybe. Let's see what else we got. Fox was traded to the San Antonio.
DeAndre Fox.
Yeah. To go along with Wemby, and the other guy again is Jack.
I want to hear about Chris Paul. I mean, Mac, you were talking about the big three. Chris Paul is long in the tooth. He's not an impact player. He's a better than average player at this point, Chris Paul. That's about the best I could say for him. He's better than average, but he's nowhere close to being an impact player. Okay,
Not anymore.
Chris
No.
Paul. Listen. You know what Chris Paul's good for? If you're going shopping, you're going grocery shopping at the supermarket. You know, when you get to the counter, he could put the stuff in he could fill the bags up for you over there. I mean, you better get the groceries on your own from the shelf. Point out what you want to get, then he could put it in your wagon for you, Chris Paul.
Wow,
He's not the guy, you know, who's going to bring home, you know, the groceries for you per se.
Well,
but
all three of those players.
Zach LaVine went to the Sacramento Kings. So I'm going to tell you, you might think Sacramento's losing DeAndre Fox, but getting Zach LaVine, you know, in the three-way deal with the Bulls, that's close to being a wash for Sacramento. You know, their draft choices involved. So it's not a bad deal for Sacramento, but for San Antonio, I think it's an outstanding deal when you could just, you know, add Fox on and put him with Wemby. You're really not only building something for the future, you're building it now. Yeah, Chris Paul's an experienced player, Count, and he's good for San Antonio, but I don't want to hear big three. Chris Paul isn't the player that he once was, and I thought he was overrated in the past. I'm going to be honest about it. And if you need any evidence about Chris Paul, whether he was overrated or not, remember those LA Clipper teams he was back on that everyone thought was going to win an NBA championship, you know, back in the day, you know, under Doc Rivers with the Clippers. Right. You know, they never got to the finals. Chris Paul never made his mark, you know, on that team.
Well, Doc Rivers isn't the greatest coach in the world to bring into the finals anyway, Jack.
Well, he did win an NBA championship with the Celtics. I agree with you about him, though. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, brother. Glad to see you this morning. Glad you're listening in. For sure, not a big three. Count Blad does agree with you. Yeah. But he is an experienced guy that is going to help the team in the locker room, on the practice court, you know, as well as during the game. So, I mean, that's something that he does bring to the San Antonio. So, Jack, let's switch gears a little bit. MLB, the former commissioner, Fay Vincent, dies at 86. He angered owners, becoming first management official to admit there was collusion against free agents. He fired George Steinbrenner and negotiated a settlement that ended the 1990 spring training lockout. All in 3 years, Jack. You know, you have commissioners that sit there for like years and nothing happens. He gets in there and everything's going crazy.
Yeah, the baseball commissioners, you could say that about football, even with Roger Goodell, who's arguably been I don't know, is the word great used, but I could say greatest commissioner in the history of sports, highest profile commissioner in the history of sports. That's a better way of putting it with Roger Goodell. Fay Vincent had the 3 years, like you said, and you have to be beholden to the owners. And obviously the owners weren't thrilled with him if he was out in 3 years, but he inherited a lot. He worked under Bart Giamatti when they banned Pete Rose from baseball. He was an integral part of it, sitting in on the meetings. And when they originally had the meeting in the hotel room with Pete Rose, it was Bart Giamatti and Fay Vincent. They all sat down, and Peter Uberroth. They were all joking around. And Fay Vincent got to the point, did you bet on baseball or not, Pete? You know, he didn't want to small talk. And, of course, Pete Rose said, no, I didn't bet on baseball and all that. And he just, you know, he played an integral part in Pete Rose never being allowed back in, because after Bart Giamatti passed away, Fay Vincent took over as commissioner, and Fay Vincent had an intense dislike of Pete Rose because of, you know, what it did to Bart Giamatti. And it didn't cost Bart Giamatti his life worrying about what happened with Pete Rose, you know, and all. Bart Giamatti had other issues. But it was 3 years. A lot was going on. A lot was going on. And even when Steinbrenner was suspended supposedly for life, they worked out an agreement. You kind of wondered, why would Steinbrenner sign anything taking a ban for life? It doesn't make sense. Let them ban you for life. What do you have to gain? But Steinbrenner got back in, and it was that Dave Winfield thing with the Howie Spirit, a gambler. But you're right, he inherited a lot, the thing with collusion and all. And it was a real mishmash, but only 3 years as commissioner. Obviously the owners weren't thrilled with him because I guess they didn't look at him as being a commissioner's owner. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy you put in place, and it's like he turned against you. Count Pla, we'll talk about football later. Maybe we'll talk about the Chiefs and officiating. That's always a fun subject to talk about.
Anyway. I don't want to talk generic stuff tonight.
Anyway, let's see. The suspending of George Steinbrenner, how do you think that affected the Yankees, after he was suspended, Jack?
It didn't affect them at all during that time because, Steinbrenner had his kids running the team. Gene Michael was, involved. I don't think it had any bearing. You get these owners like George Steinbrenner and your favorite owner, Jerry Jones, for example, and they're given an image at some point that these owners want to win so bad they'll do anything, but they go a long time without winning. I mean, the Yankees if you're going to disregard the Yankees' 1981 season when they went to the World Series, you want to call about asterisks. The Yankees didn't win a World Series or go to a World Series from 1978 to 1996.
Right.
That's an 18-year period. Even counting 1981 when they went, it was 15 years before they just went to a World Series. And if you figure no one wants to win more than Steinbrenner, why so long if you figure you have an owner who'll do anything and you have no cap at that time either? You could just spend whatever the heck you want. And I don't think it affected the Yankees. People don't realize this about the Yankees. In the 1980s, when they didn't win a World Series, they had the best record of any team in the decade. So they were successful, but you just didn't see it, come playoff time, translate into, getting to the World Series and winning it.
Yeah. There are a lot of teams. I'm not saying the Yankees now or back then were, but there are a lot of teams that are really good regular season and they get into playoffs and all sports, they kind of have problems. So,
well, I will say this about the asterisk before. You could, in a sense, put one down for the 1981 season because the season was split into two halves. The Cincinnati Reds came in second by like a half game or so in the first half and the second half. So they had the best record in the National League, but they weren't in the playoffs.
Right.
So you could put an asterisk, because of that type of fluke that took place.
Okay. Let's see. As I said, they negotiated the trading lockout. Jack Flaherty is back with the Detroit Tigers after spending last year with the Dodgers. 2 years, $35 million. I mean, they're just so stacked over there. It doesn't matter to the Dodgers if Flaherty leaves or not, I don't think.
A great move by the Tigers. Flaherty got his career back on track last year with the Tigers. Then they traded him at the end of the year to the Dodgers. He had an impressive outing in the World Series. 2 years, $35 million. Yeah, he can opt out after 1 year. I think he gets $25 million for the first year. That makes him one of the 10 highest paid pitchers in baseball. But then he could opt out because he's only supposed to get $10 million the second year. So unless he has a horrendous year, gets injured or whatever, he's not going to, opt in for the second year. I hate the way they give these players these opt-outs. I hate it. These teams have got to stand firm. they've got to tell the players, okay, we're going to give you an opt-out, but we got to have an opt-out. We'll give you a 4-year deal. You can opt out after 2 years, but then we can opt out after 3 years. You know,
Okay.
I'm okay an eye for an eye in an opt-out, okay? But why do they give in to these players and give them opt-outs? I mean, I don't get this. It just makes, you know, if you're going to sign a player to a deal and you don't care whether he opt-outs because you're going to say, look, I would have paid him the money anyway, I can understand it in a rare occasion you're giving him an opt-out. But if Jack Flaherty, a very good pitcher who could help a lot of teams, and good deal for the Tigers, you know, Tigers are going to be a contender next year. And what people forget, they made the playoffs this year. No team closed as strongly as they did in baseball. They came out of nowhere to make the playoffs, and then they lost in the playoffs to the Indians. But that they're already a playoff team. And when you look at the Tigers, you think, oh, well, they're an up-and-coming team. Maybe they'll contend for a playoff position. But they won the playoffs last year. That's what people forget.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, Detroit, I think it's a team.
No trade I can understand. No count. No trade's a little different because sometimes a player will only sign with a team because he wants to be in the city. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. I'm reasonable if I'm a team and the player insists on a no trade clause. I might give it to him depending on the player. Okay, I might give it to him because if he's going to make a commitment to me for a few years, I'm going to make a commitment to him. That's an even partnership. But I'm not going to allow him to opt out and leave me after 1 year, 2 years. And if he doesn't opt out, I'm stuck with him those few years. In other words, I can't opt out from him, but he can opt out from me. But if it's a no trade, that's a firm commitment, you know, both ways. But I'm going to tell you, the one player who didn't go for an opt-out, Matt Count, the one player who didn't go for an opt-out, and now it's hurting him, is Bryce Harper when he was Scott Boris's client. He signed a 13-year deal with the Phillies, $330 million. It was the largest total amount a player got over the course of a contract, the biggest amount at that time in Major League history. But the per-year value wasn't the largest amount. And he didn't want an opt-out, Bryce Harper. He was idealistic. He wanted to show his commitment to the city of Philadelphia. And now it's not good business because if he had an opt-out, the Phillies would have redone his contract. It would have meant more money for him.
Well, he isn't complaining. As long as he ain't complaining, I'm not complaining.
No. Bryce Harper, a year ago, he had something like 8 years left on his contract that would take him to the age of 38 or something. He said he wanted to extend his contract.
There you go.
He was talking about an extension with 8 years left on his contract. Give me a break.
All right.
Talking about an extension, whatever, 6 years left. Come on. The Phillies are really going to want to extend the guy with 6, 7, 8 years left on his deal. That tells you it was a mistake. And his agent, Scott Boras, says, well, teams do it. Look what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. I mean, really, you're comparing Bryce Harper to Patrick Mahomes. A completely different sport, number one. Different positions. And Patrick Mahomes means a heck of a lot more to the Chiefs than any one baseball player is going to mean to his team. And that includes Ohtani.
Okay. We didn't mention Jerry Butler. Richard was reading my format this morning as I was getting to him. Unwilling to sign an extension with the Warriors, Jack. And Richard thinks opt-outs avoid the behavior of Jimmy Butler types quitting on their team.
Well, I don't know who, you know, we talked about Kyrie Irving before. He got a good deal from Dallas, but he didn't get as much as he could have gotten had he just been a good citizen. And what does Jimmy Butler want exactly? I think a little of this is ego between Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler. Pat Riley wants to establish Jimmy Butler's not pushing us around. And they've taken a hard line stance to Heat with Jimmy Butler. They've suspended him 3 times. Jimmy Butler now, this is his way of giving the Heat a hard time. So Jimmy Butler, might say, I'm not signing with anyone. I'm just going to become eventually a free agent like in a year, and I'll go to whoever I want to go to. But what team is going to give Jimmy Butler the type of deal he could have gotten had he done things the right way all along? And for Miami, what can they get in return for Jimmy Butler now? Jimmy Butler might want to foil the Miami Heat, figuring, okay, they could get these players for me, but I'm not going there because I don't want them to have a good deal. And if you're Jimmy Butler's teammates on the Heat now, supposedly these guys are his friends. He says it's got nothing to do with my teammates, and his teammates might say they like Jimmy Butler. But look at where he's leaving them. He's trying to hurt his teammates by them not getting value in return.
Yeah. And I think, you always hear that they know it's business, right? The player, it's business. I don't care what other players say. When it affects the team, it's got to bother you. You should get what he wants. He should do what he wants to do. It's business. It still affects your team. I wouldn't be surprised that if they're talking to Butler or they're, talking amongst each other about this, Jack.
I think it's too far gone with Jimmy Butler, too far gone in Miami. There's nothing that can be done. I mean, the only thing they could do logically, showcase him. Put him on the court, let him play really well. That would be maybe a Miami Heat strategy. Let him put up 35 points a game. Let other teams say, wow, Jimmy Butler's still got it. He can help us a lot, and make some type of deal. I mean, but you need the chips to make a deal. Miami's not giving him away without getting value. The most logical place for him to go to would be back to the Philadelphia 76ers, where he's buddies with Joel Embiid, and he would elevate the Sixer team. But what did the Sixers have to give up for him? They don't have anyone to give up for him at this point. And if it's a non-contender, why do they need Jimmy Butler? Why would, the Brooklyn Nets, for example, need Jimmy Butler? Unless they're looking to sell some tickets and have a name. There's no real value there. I mean, would the Nets turn around, for example, and put together a package of D'Angelo Russell and, a couple of number 1 draft picks? Because the Nets have some draft capital now for Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy Butler probably opt out from the Nets, in a year. So, I mean, and he's an older player, he's in his mid-30s. Jimmy Butler's best going to a team where he could be a difference maker. Okay? And I'm not talking about making the playoffs that could maybe put them over the top to win an NBA championship. Jimmy Butler would have been good with San Antonio, believe it or not, instead of a Chris Paul. Jimmy Butler's still good enough to form a big 3. Because I don't think Jimmy Butler's so long in the tooth. And Jimmy Butler's a fierce competitor when he buys in. And he bought in for some years with the Heat. Yeah. He was a fierce competitor for years.
Well, believe it or not, we say this all the time. You sign a contract, honor it. Players they're not like that anymore.
No, he's honoring his contract. I don't think it's a question of Jimmy Butler not honoring his contract.
Well, he's walking out of practice, Jack.
Yeah,
walking out of practice. He's leaving his team at the airport. He's not showing up. And when he's on the court, is he playing his best? I don't know.
Jimmy Butler was showing some discontent originally because they were playing him a little less. He was a little less involved. Jimmy Butler has a big ego because he's been a star for years. And when you treat a star player like just another good player, some of them have a hard time adjusting. Many of them can't adjust so quickly. They like the transition from a superstar type player. Not that Jimmy Butler was quite a superstar, but he was a big star, a star player into a very good player. They have to make that transition like Shaquille O'Neal when he went to Miami Heat. As soon as he got there, he asked to speak to the whole team together, and he said, Dwayne Wade is the main guy on this team. I'm like the supporting guy. That was Shaq's way of transitioning, that he's not the man anymore. Jimmy Butler had no one on Miami to transition that way. If Jimmy Butler went to the, a team like OKC, Giglius Alexander's the guy there. Jimmy Butler wouldn't come there as the star. If he went to San Antonio, he would recognize Wemby's the big star, the future. I'm here to be the main supporting guy. But at Miami, that wasn't happening. Miami didn't have any great players who Jimmy Butler looked at as being better than him or any big stars of the future. And all of a sudden, they're using him a little less than before. He's given a little less responsibility. That went over very poorly, and that's what put this whole chain of events in motion. It wasn't a question of him not honoring his money on the contract, anything like that.
Well, Count Blah disagrees with you. I kind of disagree with you, but that's okay.
It's not a money thing with Jimmy Butler. He even told the Heat before he's not signing an extension.
Well, I know that, but play. You're there for another year. Play good. Play the best you can.
I agree. We agree. I agree. But it wasn't a money issue with Jimmy Butler with the Miami Heat having to pay him. It was more than that.
I agree. All right, so let's change gears. Let's go to NFL. They're considering the electric thing in the ball, like they have in tennis, that would help the ball spotted for a first down, but the chip would not be used in measuring for a first down. So I don't even know what that means, Jack. I said before, you catch the ball, both your feet are in bounds or one foot's out of bounds or it's touching the line. How does this chip help?
I have no idea. I want to spend a lot of time talking on it because I don't understand it, not because so much a topic. And, and where they lean and where the officials put the ball for first down. I think it's easier to see whether the feet are in or out. You stop the replay and the official makes a call on the field. If the replay is not conclusive, you go with the call on the field. Case closed. I don't want to hear an argument about that. As far as spotting the ball, it's so hard because we never know exactly where the ball is. Oftentimes the players in a pile of bodies, an inch here, an inch there.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the answer is to that.
I mean, did the chin touch? Did the knee touch? Did his elbow? I mean, all this stuff has got to be figured out. And I think the officials really get a bad rap here, more than I think anybody else. I mean, you could argue that every umpire has their own strike zone. You could argue that every NBA referee calls fouls differently. They don't get it like the NFL does. And the NFL, to me, you're watching 22 people on the field, Jack, at once.
Yeah. I agree. Okay. Mac.
All right. Chip Kelly gets hired as a Las Vegas offensive coordinator, Jack. He was the head coach with the Eagles for a while, head coach for the Oregon Ducks, had that fast-paced offense. Is that what they're doing in Vegas now? What is O'Donnell? I guess. I'm trying to remember the quarterback name. O'Connell? Is he going to be running?
O'Connell.
Is
they're
he going to be
old school with Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly? I mean,
yes. I mean, are they going to run a fast offense?
I mean, yeah, they're going to be interesting with those guys for sure. But Aiden O'Connell as their quarterback. Let's see what happens in the draft. There's a little talk that Shedeur Sanders might fall a bit. And if he, falls out of the top 3, which is a possibility, unless someone trades up, he might be there for the Raiders to take. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of wonder. Shador Sanders is a little bit of a wild card because, personality-wise with Dion, it might scare, his dad. It might scare a couple of teams off, you're thinking. And then there's the element, how good might he be? This draft is going to be interesting because you have two great position players, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I mean, what teams wouldn't want to have them? And if there's sure things in between Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, I have a feeling, Mac, between Cam Ward and Shador Sanders, one of them might be this year's version of Brady Quinn. The year Brady Quinn got drafted, what was he drafted? Was it late in the first round, the second round? I forgot.
It was close to the end of the first, beginning second. I know it was around there.
Right. And even Johnny Manziel, they traded up Cleveland to take him at something like 24, and they traded up for that. Some of these quarterbacks, who we're projecting are going to go so high, the team's a little smarter than, we are at times. Matt Leinart, everyone was thinking, top 3. When the Jets were going number 4 overall in the draft, people were all excited. Oh, they're going to take Matt Leinart. They took Brickashaw Ferguson, an offensive lineman. And it turned out to be a great, great pick. It would have been a bust to take Matt Leinart. But the temptation is, you look at all these mock drafts and they're thinking that Matt Leinart could go here, so high. And I'm not high on Cam Ward, myself, okay? I'm higher on Shador Sanders than he is. And in this particular year, it's unpredictable. But Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, they're going to be great. Both of them are going to be great. So do you want to bypass a great impact player for a quarterback with, maybe question marks because you have a need or not? It's a tough one.
Well, there are going to be teams reaching for a quarterback. They always do every year, trying to find that one guy that they think might hit. And this is a terrible quarterback draft. So,
but last year, I'm going to tell you, we're going to look back in the future at last year's quarterback draft, the 6th taken, and the jury's still out on J.J. McCarthy, who was injured and it didn't play, and Michael Penix hasn't played enough. But my feeling is he is going to be good.
Yeah.
But you look at, Bo Nix, excellent rookie year, Jayden Daniels, sensational. Caleb Williams, he's going to be a really good quarterback, I feel. And the same with Drake May. He should be pretty good. So I think we're going to look back at this quarterback class and say, wow, this was a good one. But I don't have that same feeling with Cam Ward and Shador Sanders. But I think Shador Sanders is the better of the two. Your Giants are going to be the big question, going at number 3, because they shouldn't have to trade up if they want a quarterback. If the quarterbacks go 1-2, to get a monster like Abdul Carter, pass rusher like him, or Travis Hunter, I'll look elsewhere. I'll see what I could do otherwise. But it's going to be a fun draft this year to see what happens.
I will too.
Take Aaron Rodgers off our hands if you're the Giants.
I don't know if that would be for 1 year. I don't think that'd be a bad idea.
He'll just have to switch lockers at MetLife Stadium, right?
Exactly.
That might be fun. That might actually be fun in a Giant uniform. Yeah.
Yes. So Kampla asked our opinion on officiating in the Chiefs. I'll give you mine. I don't know if Jack wants to go into it or not. To me, when you're a good team, a real good team, you might get some calls because the refs, or you're going to be mad because you're going to think they should be called more. The officials do not decide the games, folks. They don't. It's decided on the field. Both teams normally get the same amount of flags. That may be a little bit higher on one side or the other. And that's because the other team is better. So, to me, if you're going to sit there and complain about your team, you probably lost the football game. You didn't win because you wouldn't be complaining then. But I don't think any officiating can lose the game for a team. So that's my thoughts on it, Jack. And I imagine
for the most part, you're right. But certain sports superstars, they get a little bit the benefit of the doubt because the officials are human. They're fans themselves, and they're in awe of certain superstar players. And but I remember when Larry Bird was the coach now with the Indiana Pacers. They lost a series in 7 games to the Chicago Bulls. And he was talking after the game complaining, we knew Michael was going to get all the calls. And I'm thinking, Larry, that's what they said about you when you played for the Celtics. You're going to get all the calls. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to be under the microscope this game. No one's looking to do many favors. And statistically, Patrick Mahomes got the same amount of calls as a Josh Allen. It was pretty similar. But if you take a guy like a Drew Lock, giant quarterback of Patrick Mahomes, Patrick Mahomes is going to get a little more the benefit of the doubt from the officials because psychologically he's a superstar. They're going to be, if he gets hit hard, they're a little more apt to throw a flag than they would if a Drew Lock got hit hard. A little more, okay?
Yeah,
it's human nature, but you've earned that right with your play on the field in a sense.
Listen, I agree with that totally. And so does Count Blah. Rich, thank you. Yes, we did have a fun time today. Always have a fun time.
Well, it snowed in Florida, Rick, about a week ago in certain parts. I mean, and not around here. They didn't know what to do at certain parts when it snows here.
No, they didn't. Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Sorry, folks, we got to get out of here. You got Coffee and Sports coming up next on the Roku channel. For anybody that isn't on the Roku channel, we got some new people in today. All you got to do is channel search on Roku TV, National Streaming Sports. If you don't have a Roku TV, all you got to do is download the free app, and you can get Roku on your laptop, your tablet, or your mobile phone. So there you go. You can join.
And if you like boxing and football, tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Glove Fist. Even though it's a boxing show, my co-host Frank Laterzo loves talking football. And his worst nightmare might come true. He hates the Philadelphia Eagles. He predicted they'd win the Super Bowl, and they're 1 game away. And Frank Laterzo is really depressed about it. He hates Ohio State and the Philadelphia Eagles. So his worst nightmare is about to happen. Perhaps if the Eagles win.
I think he's a closet Philadelphia Eagle fan, Jack. I really do.
I'm wavering on my Super Bowl pick, Mac. I said early in the week, I think the Chiefs should win. I haven't made an official pick. I'm wavering, Mac.
Wow.
I'm just wavering. When you look back and forth, I mean, when a team has won so many close games, it catches up to you. Also, this Chiefs team reminds me a little bit of the 49er teams with Joe Montana that won back-to-back Super Bowls and then lost to the Giants 15-13.
Yeah.
It kind of maybe catches up to you one of these close games. And the Eagles certainly have the impact players. And Patrick Mahomes hasn't been sensational this year. He's gotten the job done. That's the best way of putting it. He's gotten it done week in, week out. But it's not like he's having a great year the way like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen had during the regular season.
Look, I picked the Eagles to win it. But Kansas City Chiefs have the best head coach. They have the best defensive coordinator. And they got the best quarterback.
The Chiefs, you mean? The Chiefs.
The Chiefs. Yes. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. It should be a great game.
We'll see.
Yes. Folks, have a great one. We'll see. Jack will see you tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on Glove Fist. I'll see you at 5 on the Big Blues show. Big Blues Wrecking Crew show. Anyway, I'll see you at 5 with my brother Bobby. Have a great